What's going on, y'all? Today we are going to be talking in this post-game live about the Toronto Raptors mollywopping the Taipans. What do you make of a game like this where clearly one side is way ahead of the other? I think you can get a lot. I think you can get a lot if you're Darko Rajakovic. I don't agree with anybody saying it's just a wash. You learn a lot about your team in moments like this. Who continues to press? Who continues to play hard defensively? Who lets up? This is always a sign of a veteran team, a mature team, a team that takes care of business and doesn't let a team like that is so undermanned and so outclassed to begin with kind of stick around in the game. The Raptors did lose the third quarter. That's a little bit concerning. We got a chance to look at some of the deeper rotation pieces, players like Javon Freeman Liberty, players like Marquise Noel, Grady Dick, maybe players including McCore Maker. We call him Maker. I think his name is McCore Maker, but someone correct me if I'm wrong on that. And of course, Jeff Dowtin Jr. And I'm going to devote a pretty hefty portion of this live to talk about the deeper rotation pieces, but we'll also talk about what we saw from the Raptors starters, Dennis Schroeder, point guard experiment, number 2, what did we see? Pascal Siakam continuing to move the ball. What did we see there? So let's hit that intro around. I want to say after my post-game thoughts, let's say it's 9:08 right now. Intro runs till about 9:09. We're going to get to your calls around 9:20, 9:22. So I won't take too long to ramble off, but I do want to break down a couple of things about this game. And then of course, I want to introduce some of the topics so that, the callers have something to sort of latch on to. If you are interested in calling, there's already a couple people in the queue right now. So if you are interested in calling, please do call. This is a call-in show. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you saw from the Toronto Raptors. And without further ado, let us hit that intro. Just a heads up to those of you who aren't subscribed, you're going to have 5 years of bad luck if you don't subscribe right now. And if you really don't want to subscribe, you don't want to get notifications, just hit like on this video. It helps more people get this out there. I'm just kidding. You won't have bad luck. I apologize for that. Okay, so let's talk about this game. All right, the Raptors starters did not play past the first half. And, what is there to glean from that? I mean, they were all pretty much plus 19, plus 15. They all pretty much scored. I think, I'm really encouraged by what I've seen from Pascal Siakam so far. Rebounding, boxing out, not so much. But his ability to move off the ball, not dominate possessions, kind of just be one of the guys. Because, look, if there's anyone on this team that doesn't have an issue scoring 20, 25 points, it's him, right? He has no issues. So allowing his other teammates to sort of gel. I joked on Twitter that if you missed Wilt Chamberlain in his prime, then you should just tune in to Chris Boucher against the Taipans because it's pretty much the same thing, right? But without Boucher in the game in the second half, the Raptors really struggled, right? They really struggled keeping the Taipans off the glass. They lost the third quarter. I liked what I saw from Scotty, and I didn't like what I saw from Scotty. It was sort of a mixed bag, right? Now, some people are going to just latch on to, he was 4 for 6 from the field, Rob. He hit 2 threes. He got to the line 6 times. He had 14 points. He led all starters in scoring again, right? Those 5 turnovers could have easily been 7. And if you count out the time that he checked out of the game and left his team to play 4-on-5, it should be 8 turnovers, because you should get you should get a turnover for not having enough guys on the court. So look, maybe not the most dialed in game. This is a player that typically you see dial up for bigger performances. I expect when they go to Chicago, the team that, ultimately ended their season last year, you'll probably see a more dialed in and focused Scotty Barnes. Um, it's not all bad though, right? It's a mixed bag, and with any 22-year-old, you're going to see a bit of a mixed bag, right? I thought the defense was active. He got on the glass, he crashed, he ran the floor hard, he pushed the ball in transition. Some of those turnovers I can actually live with. Some of them were not really his fault, but I am saying that for a guy who didn't play the second half, getting, in my opinion, almost 7 turnovers is pretty bad. The Raptors did give him a lot of on-ball reps, right? Dennis Schroeder kind of moved off the ball. Pascal Siakam, kind of weird seeing. Okay, this is going to sound weird, but seeing Dennis Schroeder sort of look off Pascal Siakam 3-4 times was just like, it was kind of a weird thing for me, because I'm like, what do you do that he doesn't do better? Like, just get him the ball, man. Like, it's kind of weird, right? It's funny because Darko Rajakovic is the big proponent of 0.5 basketball. Dennis Schroeder is his guy from OKC, and he's kind of come in to initiate. And if there was one player in the starting lineup who kind of just held on to the ball a little longer than I would have liked him to, it was Dennis Schroeder. So I don't know. What can I say? When the bench lineup came in, honestly, it's concerning. There's a glass half full, half empty, situation here. Half full, you're not playing a lot of guys, right? Chris Boucher would be on your bench. He's currently playing with your starters. Otto would be on your bench. You're not playing. You're not going to be playing. You're probably not going to. You're hopefully not going to be playing Malachi Flynn and Thaddeus Young any minutes unless there's a travesty, right? So this is not really a fair evaluation for, how Grady and Gary look, right? Because they're being overloaded on a little bit and pressed too much. I really like the passing from Grady Dick. Every single game, I know that a lot of fans are like, I want this guy to come out and splash 6 threes. I don't care if he splashes 6 threes. I know he can splash 6 threes. This part of his future is not up for debate for me. I said to somebody today, it's going to be a 20-point per game scorer at some point down the line. I am more interested in what else he can do. Is he going to be a 20-point per game scorer who also gives you 5-6 rebounds, also gives you a lot of playmaking, also is competitive on defense? Or is he going to be like an empty calories 20 points per game, who doesn't give you anything else? That was my biggest concern. And so far, Summer League preseason, I'm very impressed. I see a lot of the other stuff. He's long. He's pretty athletic. He's not super bursty or fast, but he's pretty athletic. He's super smart. He made a great pass to Malachi Flynn, that sort of wraparound pass. It's not easy to make that pass. It's not easy to see that pass. And it's definitely not easy to make it on target the way that he did. So I see some major big playmaker chops from this guy. And if he's already got the shot down, then it's just a matter of time. Give it time. I see a lot of people writing him off. We did a poll on Instagram. What do you expect from this guy? 18% of people said by the end of the season he might be out of the rotation. I suspect that the Raptors have bigger and brighter expectations for Grady Dick. And, like any rookie, Scotty Barnes was a very rare rookie in that he came in very physically developed. Same thing with OG Anunoby. It doesn't work that way for all rookies, especially ones who are a bit slight of build. It might ramp up towards the end of the season, but I do believe that with the fact that they invested a lottery pick in him, the fact that they've spoken so highly and glowingly about him, the fact that he gels and meshes so well, and the fact that he fits such a positional and roster need, like outside shooting, I think by year's end, Grady Dick will comfortably be a 15 to 20 point per game, 20 minutes per game contributor for the Raptors. Malachi Flynn, look, I was pretty critical of him last game. I'm going to be critical of him again this game. I don't like what I'm seeing. I know there's a couple of nice passes, a couple of nice shots. I'm just not liking it. I'm not liking the flow of the game with him. I'm not liking the pace. I'm not like, it's not really anything that he's even doing wrong. It's not, necessarily anything that he's doing wrong. There's just a talent gap between him and what I expect from a backup guard for an NBA team that's hoping to be competitive, and he's not it, right? He's not it. So let's talk about some other players on the team. Gary Trent. Lord help me. I am trying to be very, very kind with Gary Trent Jr. because, I came a long way on him from 2 years ago, just kind of not wanting him on the team, thinking he was a super overrated defender, to last year really defending him when I felt really bad that he got benched. But like some of the gambling that he did, and it's not even calculated gamble. It's just wild swings, and it's leading to breakdowns. Saw him do it at least 2 to 3 times tonight. Really not necessary. Shot wasn't super falling today, and there's some people saying like the Raptors need to prioritize signing him over OG Anunoby. Hold the brakes on that. Speaking of OG Anunoby, there's some real feel issues with this guy. Like seriously, like he needs to get into rhythm, and you know what? I've seen him get into rhythm before, and maybe he's just out of rhythm right now, and it's different for every player, right? The Raptors season opener is 10 days away. So I'm hoping that he's closer to in rhythm by then. But a lot of the moves feel very like his brain is going one way, his body is going the other way, right? It feels very unnatural, very disjointed. The passes are a little bit late. That being said, he did make a couple of really nice passes tonight. Did gap a couple of, passing lanes. I think overall he's solid, but I think a lot of the on-ball creation stuff and stuff that he wants to do with the basketball, this is going to be a work in progress for him. I love how often Scotty looks for him in transition, and it's great. I just wish he would take shots that were open. There was a couple of times tonight where the Raptors broke from the offense. There was a corner three that Scotty passed up. Granted, it turned into a better three for a better three-point shooter. However, that is not a three you want to consistently pass up, and it is a mistake, in my opinion. When you pass up an open three, you're giving the defense basically a reason to back off of you. And when they start backing off on you, you don't have the creativity and handle to really break your guy up the dribble. You need defenses to respect your shot. And the only way to get them to respect your shot is to convince them that if they leave you open, you're going to take it. Really. Other than that, it's to become a 40% three-point shooter. And he's not about to do that this year. So he needs to take those shots. And, passes need to be made on target, on time, right? There's a lot of pound. And again, it's hard to tell against a team that is so consistently outmatched. But Darko Rajakovic has talked about it. It's not about the other team. It's about us in preseason, and we're trying to implement new things. Well, work in progress. That's what I'll say. Okay, speaking of, who else do I want to talk about? I want to talk about, okay, let's talk about, I'm not going to talk about Garrett Temple. I'm not really going to talk about Thaddeus Young and his hook shots. I'm not really going to talk about any more than I already have Pascal Siakam, because I think he played solid. Other than, again, the rebounding, some of the assignments, some of the defense, again, the defense for the entire starting unit was a little bit lax, right, across the board, including Dennis Schroeder. There's a couple of plays he just gave up on. Scotty Barnes gave up on a couple of plays. Really didn't like the defensive intensity from that team. And honestly, like, I'm just being straight up. Like, I would have wanted them to come out and smoke this team in the first quarter and just sit for the rest of the game, because you're already down so many bodies, and we're not even like done preseason. And when Chris Boucher grabbed his finger, I was just like, oh man, like, please God, don't do this right now. Okay. So I just would have wanted, it's hard to say you blow a team out, but let me be clear. This is a team that is missing some very key pieces, and they had to just bring Elfrid Payton in. Elfrid Payton, of all freaking players in the world, this is their savior. I mean, you should have smoked this team by more. I'm just being straight up. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. I'm not trying to hate. I'm not trying to say anything. I'm just saying, if you wanted to, you could have beat this team by 100. If your starters were resting, you still could have beat this team by 60 to 70 points. Speaking of professional effort, let me credit the third unit, because I think for the most part, there are 3 players that I really want to talk about in the third unit. Are the 3 players I want to talk about? Yeah, I really want to talk about 3 players. First, let's get this out of the way. I don't think Marquise Noel had a bad game. I don't think he had a good game. I think he just had kind of a weird game. This is not what we were talking about when we said Marquise Noel is going to break some ankles in the NBA, right? Dives right into the guy's, foot. I hope that guy's okay. I was going to crack a joke about it on X, but it felt like if it's a serious injury, that might be very classless. Let me not do that thing that I did last year where I have to talk down somebody to talk up somebody else. And let me just talk up the people that I really want to talk up right now. There are two players on this roster that have very much interested me all summer. And one of them has interested me all the way till last season. So the first player that I really want to talk about as honestly, playing flawless basketball. Now I went back and I watched all the summer league stuff, right? Loved it, loved him. And just watching him now, Javon Freeman Liberty, man, I would feel this might be hot take territory, but I think he should push somebody in the rotation. I really do. I think the gap between him and some of the guys ahead of him is not very big. I mean, I understand he's a two-way guy. He played for the Windy City Bulls, blah, blah, blah. But, people accelerate and ascent at weird stages. And I have not seen anything from him in summer league or now that is suggesting to me that the things that he's doing, he can't do against better competition. And you're not asking him to lead your offense, but he is a very creative, very shifty, very active, and decent shooter. I mean, damn. I'm not used to the Raptors actually hitting on these players, but I think they've hit one here. I think this is a really good player. I think he deserves some time. And I hope that Darko Rajakovic is a little bit more open-minded than his predecessor when it comes to evaluating his second string versus his third string. Because I don't think that the gap between Javon Freeman Liberty and some of the guys who are ahead of him, and I'm not naming names, but I'm just saying some of the guys who are ahead of him currently, who are coming into the game ahead of him, I don't think it's that big. And I think he fills a lot of needs for you. I think he fills a lot of creation needs for you. I really do. I think he could play backup point guard for you. I think there's something here. There is something here that is worth exploring. Speaking of two ways. Okay. Get ready for the hot takes. Get ready to lose your. I hope you're not drinking anything. If you're sitting down, if you're not sitting down, sit down, because I don't want you to fall over when I say this. If I was coaching the Toronto Raptors, Jeff Dowtin Jr. would be a starter. I'm not kidding. He's a really good player, man. He is a really good freaking player. I understand. I get it. He's a two-way guy, blah, blah, blah. He's undrafted. Chill. Man, you just had an undrafted point guard go out the door and make $43 million. Undrafted doesn't mean shit. I'm telling you that I spent all year last year breaking down this guy's game tape. I watched him live for the 905. I watched him live at the game. There was a game where I went to, I'm not kidding, where I literally devoted the entire game. I had amazing seats. I devoted the entire game to charting every one of his possessions from the top. I just wanted to see what this guy's doing off the. I'm telling you, man, he's good. He's really good. Now, I feel crazy saying this because, he got into the game after Malachi Flynn, after Marquise Noel, after Gary Trent Jr., after Dennis Schroeder. And I'm not kidding. I would start this guy. I'm not joking. This is not an unconventional thing in the NBA to start a fifth starter who's more like a third stringer. The reasoning or rationale for starting Dennis Schroeder is that you need point of attack defense. I'm going to break it to you, Darko Rajakovic, dear my countrymen. Your best point of attack defense, your best point of attack defender is sitting at the end of your bench. And I don't think he's that much worse as a shooter than Dennis Schroeder. If not, I think he might be just as good, if not better. He's younger. I'm not trying to make this a this guy versus this guy thing, and you can make all the cases in the world that Dennis Schroeder is a better player. I don't care. I'm talking straight up fit. This guy fits. He gets off the ball quickly. He makes super smart decisions. He's an incredible defender. He's gotten more athletic over the summer. Every person I've ever talked to who really gets hoops, and I'm talking trainers, players, everybody, they rave about this guy. When I talk to casual fans, they're just like, oh, it's second stringer. Bro, if you understand fucking basketball, Jeff Dowtin, Fred VanVleet and I don't agree about anything in the world. The only thing we agree about is that Jeff Dowtin can hoop. Okay? So, look, I had 5 objectives last year with this channel. 4 of them came true, including getting, Freddie VanVleet out of here, Nick Nurse out of here, Scotty with the ball, new coach. Yep, I got everything I wanted. The only thing I wanted last year that I did not get is free Jeff Dowtin. So that's what I'm asking. Darko Rajakovic, Masai Ujiri, Bobby Webster, if this message somehow gets to you through the ether, I know this channel has weird ways of flowing through Twitter sphere and Raptor sphere. Maybe someone's going to clip this as, look at how stupid this guy is. He's saying Jeff Dowtin should start. Clip it. I don't care. Do it. Like every time I tag this guy all the time in the stories that he sees, and it's super cool. It's so hard to be a two-way guy and a G League guy bouncing around from one G League team to one two-way contract to another two-way contract. And I don't know if he sees how good he is. I don't know if the Raptors see how good he is. I hope they do. There's no one who's committed themselves more to this team this summer than this guy. He stuck around Toronto. He was freaking front row center at Darko's presser. I mean, he has done everything in the world that you have asked him to do, despite the fact that he got injured and he had all those issues during Summer League that kept him out. Give this dude a chance. And he's a really good person too, like really freaking solid. So I cannot see the argument against him. Like, I know I'm saying I would start him, but at the very least, make him your backup point guard. I'm done with this Malachi Flynn, Marquise Noel stuff. Like, I get it. It's cool. Raptors, social media, posting pictures of those guys. I get it. It's fine. You have one, he's an undersized story. The other one, is a first round pick. Maybe you're hoping to boost his trade value by posting about him a lot. Don't let another freaking gem slip through your fingers, because I assure you that if I see how good this guy is, there's 29 other GMs who definitely see how good this guy is. And he's just getting to his prime. And he works really freaking hard. Don't sleep on Jeff, bro. I'm telling you, he's good. He's really good. I'm going to move off this topic now. All right. Before I get to the calls, 3 quick shout outs. First of all, this channel really wouldn't be anywhere if it was not for people shouting us out. And so with some platform, just a little platform, that we have now, sometimes it's cool to give other people a little bit of a shout out, even when those people are way bigger than this channel. I still don't care. I want our audience to know when people are doing good work, when people are funny, when people are doing good shit. I want to be able to celebrate it. So I want to make this kind of a consistent part of what we do, even if it's not every single live. I do have a couple, like 3 people that I just want to say shout outs to this, right? So number 1, definitely, if you haven't subscribed already, go over to Vince Carter's channel. It's at VC Show. It's the VC Show, all one word. Go check it out. I linked it in the last video. It's in the pinned comment. Definitely go check it out, man. I mean, for everything that he's meant to this city, it probably feels really nice to see positive comments from Raptor fans. So I know that people in this channel and this community are forward thinking and really cool people. So definitely go check it out. Give him a shout out, give him his flowers. It's a really small channel right now, but it is real. It's really his channel. And, before long, it'll be millions and millions of subscribers, or hundreds of thousands of subscribers. So maybe take a moment now to communicate your thoughts and say thanks. Because eventually these channels get huge and you probably can't get your message across. That's first. Second, shout outs to Kevin Durant, man. One thing I've noticed is, for all the shit that this guy takes, he's such a solid person. I think any person who's ever covered the NBA, has been around the NBA, talks to people around the NBA, you get a feeling that this guy got a really bad rap. So Kevin Durant and Scotty Barnes, big empaths. And what do? They post a story featuring Kai Jones, his music, almost as like, I mean, they're not really making a statement about it. They're not really being political about it. They're just showing support for a brother, because this is a fraternity. The NBA is a fraternity, and I really appreciate it. And I just wanted to take a moment to just tell you, I've seen a lot of stuff about Kai Jones on Twitter, man. I've seen a lot of stuff about Kai Jones on Reddit. A lot of stuff about, this guy's an idiot. This guy's this guy's that. It's a kid from Nassau, Bahamas, man. I mean, this is who you're talking about. Just let me show you this. This is who you're talking about. Guy who left his home country, right? Passion for music, incredibly gifted athlete, super hard worker, got a 4.0, he got buzzed from Ivy League schools. It's crazy. He's going through a tough moment. Let us not judge 22 years by 22-second clips. Whatever is happening will pass, I'm sure. He will land on his feet, I'm sure. I hope he gets the help. I hope he gets the peace. But shout outs to Kevin Durant for giving him some love, because I can only imagine what he's going through right now, and it must feel nice to have one of the greatest players of all time rocking out to your music and kind of giving you a public salute on that. So that was really cool. Third, random, very random, but I do want to just say this is probably the funniest comedian that I have discovered all year. Sent him a DM on Instagram. Like, I was just like, yo, you might be the funniest person in the world. Like, this is amazing. So I just want to give you a little taste of Gastor Almate. Yo, from East New York, Brooklyn, this guy is fire. Like, every
it was
joke.
more like an NBA pick.
So this is Gastor. You know, he got called into the principal's office because he knocked over some kids. This is a real quick clip. It's like 20 seconds. You're going to laugh your ass off. I promise. He gets called into the principal's office for knocking over some kids in the playground. So he gets called in and he's just like, I didn't know this was still on the table. This is the
He's like, you're pushing kids in the schoolyard? I was like, no, man, don't be ridiculous. It was more like an NBA pick. You know, like I didn't extend, but I stood firm. She's like, Mr. Almonte, don't you think there's another way you can handle that? I was like, man, I'm 6 feet tall. I'm 300 pounds. And I don't move fast. If that kid didn't see me coming, like, he not gonna see life coming.
Shout outs, man. He's incredible. Go follow him on Instagram. Go like the videos on YouTube. He's blowing up. He's blowing up quick. And 2-3 years from now, I promise you're gonna see him all over Netflix. I get talent. I see talent, and this guy's like really good. Like 10-minute specials, 20-minute clips. Like, you laugh 100 times. All right. To the calls. Let's get the first caller, Tamberlin. What's going on, man?
Hey, Rob, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Hi, Stream. So, I was all over Jeff Dowtin tonight. So, I kind of wanted to talk about what's happening with the roster, because they have their 3 two-ways already, and they can only bring on 15 people for the varsity team. That means if I go through this, if we count Precious, Malachi, OG, Scotty, Gary, Otto, Chris, Thad, Christian, Pascal, Grady, Jakob, Jalen McDaniels, Dennis Schroeder, and I'm assuming Garrett Temple, because they paid him. That's 15 people. That means Jeff doesn't even make the team unless, and here's my little hot take, are they trying to showcase Malachi to get him traded, possibly with Thad, so that they can have Jeff run the second unit, or as you say, the first? I wouldn't be averse to that. I'm in the same boat as you. I think that Jeff, if I looked at the game tonight, the Raptors won the first and fourth quarters convincingly. They barely won the second quarter, and they sucked in the third quarter. And who ran the point for the majority of the third quarter? Malachi.
Yeah, I know.
The ball gets stuck in his hand. You can tell he's looking for his own shot instead of looking for the people to pass it to. He's not as good of a defender as he was touted to be when he came into the league.
Right.
They're getting into the paint and scoring freely and easily on him. So I want Jeff in a full-on rotation, getting 15 to 20 minutes per game. And I can't imagine a team that is coaches that are basically comprised of development coaches aren't looking at Jeff Towden, clapping their hands, saying, we got a winner here.
Yeah, and I mean, Scotty likes him too. You know, everyone likes him. He's a hardworking guy. He's humble. He's down to earth. He's super low maintenance. I don't get it. Like, he's a great locker room guy. Like, if he doesn't play for 20 games, he's still cheering. Like, I love Jeff Dowtin. Like, there are very few players on this team that I go horse for, that I just keep going on and on and on. And I will make, like, I don't know what I need to do at this point. Do I need to create a change.org? Do I need to sign a petition? What the hell do I need to do to get this organization to respect this dude? You know what? Honestly, if he doesn't catch on with this team, this is going to be, I hope I hope for
Huge
him.
loss.
I hope for him that he's going to catch on with some other team,
You know who'll
and
grab him? Miami will grab him in a heartbeat.
they should.
Or the Clippers will have their starting point guard.
I would
You
start him.
know,
I would start him over Russell Westbrook in a heartbeat. There's so many
I mean, look at
players.
those 15 people. Who do you think that they're cutting out? It's got to be Malachi. I think they're featuring him. What else could it be? Like, he's not cutting it.
Yeah, he's really not. I know some people saying, you know, like that he's fine. He's gotten stronger. He's gotten better, but I'm not seeing it anyways. Any other thoughts for the game?
I like Gay too.
I didn't, but yeah, I mean, just
Not so much.
I get the type, the player type. You know, the Raptors have had success with Chris Boucher, but I think there's like significant processing stuff. What did you think of Maker?
He was okay.
He was
When
okay.
him and Mamadou were clogging the paint, it was good. But he's one of the three people that it's going to come down to. Like Maker, Gay, and Dowtin are the three that seem to be on the outside unless they do a trade. Unless they cut Marquise and make someone else a two-way.
Yeah,
But I don't want Jeff on a two-way. I want him on a full contract. And I'm with you on Liberty, Premium Liberty. I really like that kid a lot. So if it
yeah.
was up to me, I mean, I'm not a GM, but in my armchair, I'm getting rid of Malachi Flynn and Thad Young. I'm trying to do a trade that gets those two out so I can have Jeff Doughton full time on the team. And I don't I, I mean, I know that Marquise is well, everyone loves the story, but I just don't see him translating into an NBA player from what I've seen in two games in the summer league. I think he's a good kid and he's a hard worker, but I just don't think he's going to be able to cut it.
Yeah, I think it's just the angles of the NBA, how difficult it is, to see when you're that size. You have to be such an elite athlete. And I mean, he's good athlete. He's not an elite athlete. He's not Allen Iverson. He's not, Isaiah Thomas. You need that level of, burst, athleticism. And those guys were so much bigger than him too. So, you know, um, I wish him well. It feels kind of like low hanging fruit to constantly be harping on Marquise Noel. He is a rookie, and the Raptors do have a lot of reasons to like him. Darko Rakovic talks about swag. He has a lot of swag, a lot of confidence,
Yeah.
and he works incredibly hard, as you must work so freaking hard to be as good as he is or was at the college level. But not someone that I would lose Jeff Doughton Jr. over. I don't care. They're not even that far apart in age. That's the joke. They're not that far apart. They're like 2 years apart in age. So, anyways, thanks a lot for calling in, Tamerlan. Always a pleasure. See ya. Bye. Next up, we got Charles. It says your devices not connected. Can you connect your device? Also, to anyone else calling in, link is in the description. We get some comments here while Charles figures out his devices. But you need to connect your mic, or you need to connect you definitely need to connect your mic, but you need to connect your video. Okay. It says cut Flynn. No one wants to trade for him. That unfortunately might be how it goes. Unfortunately. But you hate for that to happen because you did have okay, we got Charles here. Charles, what's going on, man?
I'm good. Good to hear from you again. Thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, man. What's going
on? Not a whole lot. I saw you streaming online. Few and far between where I catch your work live, so I took the opportunity to like it. First of all, thank you for doing what you do. I really appreciate the work you put in continuously. It's really good content, man, and I appreciate it. And I'm sure a lot of people do as well.
Appreciate it, man. What'd you think of the game tonight?
I didn't catch the game. I was working. So
bummer.
It is what it is, right?
It happens.
So I can't comment on the game.
That's what happened to me last game. That sucked. I had to watch it when I got home because I was on set.
Yeah. You can't catch every single minute, but I'm a huge fan. and I do watch everything when I can, like when
Of
I can.
course.
Yeah.
Definitely
But
watch the second half of today's game if you get a chance. Like just watch the third quarter, fourth quarter difference, and just tell me like if you can feel like defensive intensity, pacing, like the pressure. Like I mean, if this was Darko Ragovic's way of saying like, let me see what I have in a backup point guard, I think Javon Freeman Liberty and Jeff Dowtin really stood out to me.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm hearing a lot of good things about Freeman Liberty. So I'd like to see him more in action, like firsthand, to see what all the buzz is about. And I saw your comments about Dowden. I've seen it last year as well. I'm a fan of what he does and what he brings to the table. And like you and from the sounds of it, a lot of other people, like I'm kind of oblivious why he hasn't been given more of a rope with what he showed. And I don't understand it myself. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not there in practice, and I'm not sure what goes behind the scenes. So who knows about that?
He's killing it behind the scenes too. I can tell you that. I have it on good authority. He's been really good in practice. He was really good at
Okay.
the scrimmages. In the open run, he was incredible. Like he's just been good, man. Like they gave him run last year. Every single time they gave him run. I mean, last year we were having a debate about, oh my God, the Raptors have him on a two-way. They could really use him in the playoffs. They're not gonna be able to use him. And it's just like it's just constantly having this player on your roster. I mean, it would be one thing if it was like a loaded position, right? Like for instance, when the Portland Trailblazers had Drazen Petrovic sitting
Yeah.
third string, yeah, but they had Terry Porter and they had like Clyde Drexler. They had like really good players ahead of him, right? So you could almost
Hmm.
understand it. Yes, he was better than some of those players eventually, but you could at least understand the rationale of him not getting a look or him not getting consistent minutes. Here, I cannot understand this because all year, all I've heard is Raptors have no backup point guard, and I'm just like, yes, they do. Yes, they do. They have Scotty, they have Jeff Doughton, but they keep giving other guys minutes. And now I'm hearing like I'm really worried about the Raptors guard depth. And it's like you got Javon Freeman Liberty and Jeff Doughton, and you're worried about your guard depth because you're playing the wrong guys. I don't get it. I think both these guys are good. I think they'll both, they're both like really good people. Like you can sense it. I haven't I haven't talked to Javon Freeman Liberty, so I don't know him personally, but I've just watched his interview with, outmatched. He just seems so humble and down to earth and just a really good person, really good character guy. So I'm just rooting for these two. This is going to be my agenda all year. I'm going to push Javon Freeman Liberty and Jeff Doughton. It's going to be the free Doughton Liberty, free Doughton Liberty. That's going to be my new hashtag.
I would assume Downton is has good character. He's good to be around because he's been in the organization for a few years, and you don't really see that like in the second or especially the third string where Downton's at,
Yeah.
unless you're good for the organization. The only thing that
He's just worked really hard to latch on, right?
oh
Like
yeah,
he put in a ton of work this summer. He did the work here, instead of going back home. Again, like I mean, any person you talk to in the organization, they love him. They can't stop raving about him, especially the players. And you just like, okay, if everybody likes him, why is he the fifth guy coming in? It just doesn't make sense. So I'm hoping it's just because he was injured and he was coming back. But or what Tamberlin said, like, they're exhibiting, Malachi for trades or whatever. I generally suspect that in the back half of the preseason, you get a little bit more of an accurate look at the rotation. So it could be working both ways. If you already know Jeff Doughton's going to be a backup point guard, give Malachi the shot and see them work against each other. I have no idea, but I'd be very disappointed if opening night comes and he's behind Malachi Flynn and Marquise Noel in the rotation. That would be very weird. Or if he gets cut from the team. Anyways, Charles, any closing thoughts on the roster or anything you watched in the Sacramento game that you want to talk about, or is that about it?
I guess just closing out on this, Rob, with the whole Jeff Dowden thing. It's just one final remark from our running conversation is that do you think they have him pigeonholed as a third string or a depth guy? Because that's the only thing that runs in my head. Because okay, so Malachi Flynn there's no trade value with Flynn. I like Malachi. It is what it is. I'm sure the
Right.
organization feels bad that he wasn't given a fair shake through the development curve with Nick Nurse.
Hmm.
And it could be a problem with Nick Nurse, or it could be a problem with the organizational depth, throughout the years, whatever it is. I mean, there's
Right.
no trade value there. What, like a mid to high second at best? So
Right.
they're not losing a lot here to give Dowtin a run, but they seemingly are hesitant to do that for whatever reason. So
Right.
do they think they have them pigeonholed as just an organizational depth guy? And it makes sense because they're keeping him around their organization for good reason. He's a hard worker. And by all accounts, from the outside looking in, people like him because it makes sense because he's been around their organization for 3 years now. That's the only
Right.
thing that makes sense to me. But it seems like they have him pigeonholed in kind of a like an organizational kind of spot where he has a ceiling ahead of him. That's my closing thought on that.
Um, yeah, I don't think that's necessarily it. I mean, this is a team that has really embraced guys who were, G League guys or undrafted guys. Like they've had an open-mindedness towards it.
They
So
have.
with I mean, even late first rounders, like if you work, they'll usually like reward you, especially if you're a good player. So that's where I think this is kind of like hit kind of weirdo territory for me because um, he's their type. Like he is absolutely their type of player. He's totally their type of person.
And
And the idea that he's just not getting consistent. I mean, like let's be honest. He exhausted his entire two-way contract last year, right? Which is to say that he played the maximum number of games.
yeah,
But that does not change the fact that there are games where he was getting in for like 2 minutes, or 1 minute. And I don't think that's necessarily the same thing as, okay, you've earned a spot. Here's your guaranteed contract. Here's 3 years guaranteed.
but it's not even about that, Rob. That's the funny thing. Like the Raptors are smart organizations. They might not do everything that I agree with,
Right.
but from like a developmental standpoint, they make relatively smart decisions. Everything that they've done with
Do they?
doubt and I mean,
It's
I
it's
think
worth
so
it's
when you
worth
think about
questioning,
it.
right? Like lately it's worth questioning. I
Yes,
think that's
recent memory,
that's
absolutely, yeah.
I mean, towards the back end of this conversation after the calls are over, I want to talk about two things. And one of the things I'm going to definitely talk about and touch on is the conversation that Samson Poke had with Sirat Sohi about from the Ringer about what the Raptors have been doing lately and whether or not it's fair to be a little confused and critical of the team. So I think they brought up some really good points. I'd like to bring it up, but yeah, I think it's worth questioning if this team is error free because they've made a lot of errors, and I
It's not
think that
error
it's
free, and
you
they
know
have made a lot of errors, but in proportion to most other organizations, especially in terms of their draft capital over the last decade
if
and their
Masai Ujiri was
placement.
if Masai Ujiri was hired 2 years ago, I think a lot of people would be asking for him
Oh
to be
yeah,
fired.
but he
So
wasn't
so
hired
you
2 years ago. He was hired
that's
8 years
fair.
ago.
That's fair. But people change. People change, organizations change, ownership changes. There's a lot of things that change. And I think that a lot of people have
There's a
um
recency bias. Yeah, I get that.
there's a
And you're
recency
only, yeah,
bias on one hand. There's a recency bias, but there's also like a nostalgic bias
yep,
where people
yep.
become too obsessed with this coach brought us to the championship, this
Oh,
coach
you're
brought us
right.
to the championship, but he just
Absolutely.
cost you a round one, he just cost you a game, but he
I
brought us to a championship. And then you keep saying that, and then 10 years later you're like,
I
but it was 10
agree.
years ago. It
You're
happens to everybody. So
absolutely right.
yeah. So I
I
think it's fair to look at Masai Ujiri from, a not what have you done for me lately? Because I still think that there are a lot of competent moves and even certain moves that I didn't necessarily agree with in the moment, I can agree with it. But I think that any notion of I disagree with this, but I better not disagree with it because it's Masai Ujiri, that is gone for
I
me because there are a
completely
lot of
agree.
things that I have completely disagreed with. And it's gone the other way. Like I liked Yuta Watanabe. I did not like Juancho Hernan Gomez. I did not understand why swapping one for the other made any sense. I was very critical about it. And then watching Utah just bomb threes in Brooklyn. Granted, he tapered off once those guys got dealt. So you can make a case that it was just a byproduct of playing with two stars. but this team has let go of quite a few decent prospects that I really believe in. And whereas maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, I might actually second guess myself and say, well, if I believe in them so much and Masai Ujiri doesn't, I'm probably wrong. Right now, I'm willing to fight a little bit more. Anyways, Charles, thanks a lot for calling in, man. I always appreciate it.
I appreciate it, Rob. Thank you.
Cheers. Have a good one. Okay. Next up, we got FA, and then we got Ian or Ian. FA, what's going on, man? Long
Hey,
time no
brother,
talk.
what's going on? How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. Yeah,
What'd you think of the game?
I think the thing I like about the game or how they're playing right now is they're moving the ball. I don't want to start picking on any players right now because I know this is preseason and they played a very weak team today.
After
So
what we went through last year, I think just the ball moving
the ball
and
movement,
no one
exactly.
holding the ball for 22 seconds is like, whew, let's just
Yeah.
keep that going.
I
But
know
yeah,
some of them still have their bad habits, right? But obviously, like Daco said in one of his interview, right, that you have to get them to unlearn what is already their second nature and
it's
get
gonna
them to.
take time.
Like, it's
You
gonna
can you
take
can
time. So I
tell.
think everybody should be patient, even with Dennis Schroeder too, right? But I think the key is that they're playing for one another, and I'm
Dennis
quite
Shooter
intrigued.
wasn't here last year though. He was playing on
No,
the
no,
Lakers with
but
LeBron James. So
that's how I was playing in Lakers and in other teams, right? So that was in second
he's
nature.
had an obnoxiously high usage like
Exactly.
his entire career, and that to me is like it's weird. He's not taking a lot of shots, but he is making a ton of decisions. Like there were times in the Raptors offense early today where he touched the ball in like 3 different times. I think they're trying, like, because all of these guys are so used to playing with Fred, like
Yeah.
they're all used to playing with Fred. Everyone in that starting unit is used to playing
Mhm.
with Fred. They're kind of treating him like Fred. They're giving him the ball
But
in the
I
same
think
places as
the
Fred.
good news is that when he gets the ball right, he's pushing, right? He's pushing. So he's playing with pace, and you can see most of the time the defense is not set here. Like the pass he gave to Scotty, and Scotty gave to Chris Boucher. That was great.
Yes, I
Yeah,
love that pass. Like the processing speed was like
yeah.
bam bam, you know.
Or the one he gave to Pascal, and Pascal gave to Scotty for that dunk. That was also good.
I
So.
like that. I like that Dennis Schroeder, he doesn't he moves off the ball way more easily than Fred, number one. Number two,
Mhm,
he seems to just allow the tempo of the game. He doesn't dictate necessarily, oh, we got to slow it down. He did it a couple times where I was like, push, push, push. But yeah, overall, it's been an improvement over
But
Fred.
you're
But
right
then
what you said, right? It's like when like sometimes it gives Carter the ball or maybe somebody has the ball and they give him the ball back and then they're waiting like what they used to do with Fred, right? Then
and
they
he's
slap
not Fred. He's not
yeah,
anywhere near like the long ball threat. He's not going
yeah.
to be launching from 28 feet. So they got to adjust. And I think that this is what Darko said, as you said as well. It's second nature, right? When you play with a dominant guard, like I went through this when I was playing too.
Mhm,
Like, whenever like someone would get injured, there was a notion of
mhm,
like the guy who comes in for the injured player has to replace that injured player's play style. So if that guy is a rebounder, we're expecting this guy to rebound. If that guy's like a transition threat, we're expecting this guy to run. And then when he doesn't run, you get mad and you're just like, but I'm not that guy. And it's the same thing with Fred. Like they gotta adjust. They can't treat him like he's Fred. One, it's not good for the team. And number two, he's not Fred.
And
So
and I
at
think
some
another
point, I think,
advantage,
yeah,
another difference too is the way they're defending the 3 pointers this year is completely different, right? They're not leaving people for wide open shot, which is gonna it's gonna help the team a lot, right? Because a lot of teams last year, when we're leading by 10, 15 points, they came back by shooting the
right.
threes. So this year, if we have a good lead, I think we can sustain the lead, hopefully. And I know you guys are talking about Jeff Dowtin. I think I read somewhere that Jeff Dowtin cannot come back as a two-way. That's why he's affiliated with the Philadelphia team with
Mhm.
Nick Nurse. So for us to keep Jeff Dowtin, they need to cut somebody.
Who would you cut?
One of the one of the veterans.
Really?
Yeah,
You
Gary
would cut
Temple.
Garrett Temple or
Gary
Thaddeus Young?
Temple.
What kind of
Look at
message are you
this.
sending to your kids, man?
Well, who are you gonna cut? I'm not gonna. I don't think they. I don't think they want to. I don't think they're gonna cut Malachi Flynn.
Why
I
not?
think Malachi Flynn is in the
Bro,
coach's rotation.
you know,
Not me
look,
personally.
you know, I've been overwhelmingly positive all off season, right? Like so far, like I've been really freaking positive. Like I think if we did a ranking of the most positive Raptor channels, like
Mhm.
I went from dead last to dead first in like one off season. That's all it took. Fred went to Houston. My smile turned upside down. But I will tell you this. I said it today on Twitter. It was kind of a funny joke. I said, you know, Malachi Flynn getting his first look at NBL competition. I don't think most people got the joke. Yo, I'm not. Look, I want to be clear. I've been very big proponent of keeping it real about athletes. Athletes are working hard. Malachi's working hard too. I'm not saying anything personal about the guy. I'm not saying that he's not working hard. He's working damn hard. But this is not for everybody. This level is not for everybody. There are a lot of guys who dominate in college. Guess what? 2-3 years in the pros, boom, never seen again. It happens to a lot of people, especially the guards. Especially the guards, because you know you never know when when your skills don't level up to the next level. And he didn't play in a super strong conference, right? In college, he wasn't playing in a super strong conference. So you never knew like how he was going to adjust. And I'm telling you that apart from a blip, and I'm talking really a blip at the end of the Tampa season, I haven't seen shit that would give me consistent belief that this is someone that I could invest rotation minutes into. And yo, there's so much talent in the NBA. So much talent. Ty Washington, Josh Christopher. How many young players are we seeing sign two-way contracts, minimum deals? Josh Primo, granted, you know, you might have personal reasons for not wanting him on the team. There's a lot of really super talented guys who are younger than Malachi, and this is unfortunately the reality of the NBA. You get 2-3 years to show that you can stick. If you don't show in 2-3 years you can stick, and you're not a McDonald's All-American, you're out. You're gone. And I just haven't seen this consistent growth curve.
I
I
don't
haven't seen it.
disagree with you, but I think Darko likes him because I think he's in the rotation so far.
Well, then I'm sorry to disagree with my countryman, but he's out to lunch. Is he insane? What is he doing? No,
Yeah, well, you've seen the
no.
last two games, right?
I'm
I think
gonna have my sister spam message him. She knows him. Like I'm like what is going on with this guy? Like I know a lot, you know, it's funny. Like I don't know him personally, but I know like 10 people who know him. I'm just gonna start blasting up all their message box. Like, can you please get this guy to get Jeff Dowtin some minutes? I have an inside track, you know. This time I have an inside track, so I'm gonna use it this time. Well, this is crazy though to me. But yeah, I mean, I hope it's a trade exhibition thing. You know, they're trying to exhibit these games don't count for shit. And you know, like in previous years, preseason, usually the first half of preseason should not be taken seriously. They're not
I
showing
agree.
anything. They don't
I
want to
think
be scouted.
the last two games, that's when they're gonna try and get their rotations together. But the sad part is that we have some players that are injured, that are part of the rotation. And it's kind of interesting that we don't have what's it called, Chris Koloko, right? And when they asked the coach about Chris Koloko if he's out of the season or something, kind of dodged the question. So
Yeah,
I'm
he said, let's keep it that way. And
I'm
then
thinking that I
yesterday,
think there's something there and there that going there. Yeah, so we'll see.
man, I really hope not. I really hope not. I have such high hopes for Christian Koloko. He's one of my favorite players on the team. I love this dude, man. Like I think like if I could, like, you know, like the expansion draft,
Yeah.
you know how you can protect 8 players?
Hmm.
He would be one of the 8 players I would protect. So it's like, to me, it's like this is a massive loss because with the jump he was expected to take this season, with how well he fits with their defensive identity, now that they're going to play a little bit more conservative and they're going to play more in transition. I mean, they're trying to play through centers. I mean, he already at 23, 22 years old, he's already, in my opinion, a better passer than Chris Boucher. So,
Let me
I
ask a
mean,
question. Can they have an injury exception for him and bring another player?
I don't know about that.
Because that's what Chicago did with this guy, right? The ball.
You might be able to if you could show that he's going to be out for the entire year or something like that.
So maybe it's possible that
But I don't know if that
that's what they're
changes with
thinking.
the third two-way. But I'm not loving, you know, number one. I just think the Raptors roster is a little weird to me because, you know, I'm not like, I understand the 17th and 18th guy are all like developmental, you know, whatever. But I just think there's like better ways to invest your development dollars
I
than
agree.
Mohamedou Gay and Marquise Noel. Like there are better prospects out there. I don't know if they want to sign with you or whatever, but like from what I've heard, young players love to sign. And it's just like, yo, there's so much talent across the NBA. There's so much talent across the world.
Mohamed Duque, you want to cut him?
I'm not saying I want to cut him. I'm just saying he's 25, 26 years old. He's an
But
undersized big.
but it's not a
Like
two-way
what
player,
is the
right?
upside here? What's
It's
the
not a
upside?
two. It's not a two-way player. It's exhibit 10, right?
Okay.
So it's not really a two-way player.
Okay,
But
fine. Ron Harper Jr. So like who are your two-way guys right now? Your two-way guys are Marquise Noel, Ron Harper Jr. Who's your third two-way guy?
Friedman.
Oh shit, right. So I mean, that's crazy. You're right. That
But
absolutely right.
I'll cut one of the two-way guys and sign Malcolm
Look,
Maker.
look, look. I get the thinking on Javon Freeman Liberty. I do. I totally do. Like this is a guy that like I mean, this is the type of player that you put on a two-way contract. This is a like I look at guys like Ayo Dosunmu, in Chicago. Like that's a prospect that you keep at the end of your bench.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so much talent in the world. There's 450 jobs in the NBA. Are you telling me that you think Marquise Noel is one of the 700 to 800 best basketball players in the world? He's not. And neither is Mohamedou Gueye. Like to me, there's like
But Mohamed Duque is just a D League player, right? They're gonna cut him before and put him in D League, so it doesn't count
still,
on
I mean,
two.
like, look, like my point
But
is like,
I think this is a guy that I'll keep one way or the other. Malcolm Maker.
I, he's all right. He's all right. I see it. I get it. Like if it hits with him, I could see what they see. There's size, there's shooting potential, there's skill there. I get it. There's transition shit. I don't know if the other stuff is there with him, the IQ and all that stuff. I have to watch more on him. I haven't watched enough. I didn't watch his NBL stuff. But with Javon Freeman Liberty and Jeff Dowtin, I fully get the vision. With the rest of these guys,
But
I don't.
Jeff Dowtin can be a two-way. I think I read it somewhere. It can't be a two-way anymore for Toronto. That's why he's affiliated with the Philly team. So you have to cut somebody to get Jeff Dowtin.
Well, I would cut. there's no shortage of guys that I would cut to keep him. I would cut Thad. I would cut. Yeah, like I mean, I'm not kidding. Like he's like
I think why did they even keep Tad? I think he's gonna be the backup center
who?
with Tad Young.
No, don't say that. He's not
But
going to be
that's
the
what
backup center. Precious is going to be the backup center. Boucher, Precious. Come on, man.
Precious.
Thaddeus Young should never play for you this year unless you are facing massive
Well,
injuries.
Precious has a groin injury where you know how that goes.
It did not stop him from raising the roof 15 times today. I think he's going to be fine. I have a feeling he's going to be fine. He's going to be fine. And I mean, like, look, I mean, you really do have like 5 options at center. You could play Scotty at center. You could play OG at center. There were times tonight where they ran Pascal at center. It worked fine against most teams. It's going to be fine against Nikola Jokic. You're fucked. But guess what? You're fucked either way. If you go up against Nikola Jokic, unless you have Jakob Poeltl, and even if you had Jakob Poeltl, it's not like Jokic can just stretch him out to 28 feet and just shoot threes. I mean, against Jokic and Embiid, you're pretty much screwed no matter what you do, and you're going to have to send help anyway. Against everybody else, I think you're fine playing Pascal, OG, or Scotty at 5. You're fine. You're not losing shit. I think, like, yeah,
I
like
think
Boucher, Precious, Koloko.
my joy this year is that I think Scotty is more engaged. Like he's like, and
Yes.
you can just tell. And I was really happy with Pascal in this game, right? You can see that he's trying
He's
to,
played really well. Like I
trying
mean,
to
touch
fit into
wood,
the
touch wood.
system.
So far, he's playing really well. He's buying into the offense. He's moving the ball. He's an initiator. He's not hogging possessions. I think he's been really good.
And Daco had high praises for him after the game today. Said he's one of the best players in the world.
Who
So the coach Daco
said about who?
Pascal Siakam.
That's good. I'm glad because he spent almost an entire offseason like exclusive. Like it's almost like he had a gag order. Like he wasn't allowed to mention him. Like even when he was asked directly about him, he would just
they were trying to trade him, right? So everybody was trying to.
So why not like have your new head coach talk about what a great pleasure it'll be to coach Pascal Siakam? That's what I don't get.
You don't want to say that at the end of the you not trade him. So like, okay.
Why not? It's great to have Pascal Siakam.
I'm glad they
Wink,
didn't trade
wink,
him.
wink, wink.
I'm
Atlanta.
glad they, I'm glad they didn't trade him to Atlanta because watching those rookies, they need time.
I mean, I don't give a shit about Kobe Buffkin. I wanted AJ Griffin, and I
Yeah,
wanted
no,
Onyeka Okongwu.
you're right. I've watched Kobe Buffkin, like all the hype, right? I don't really give a shit about him.
Mm, yeah. Anyways, man, any closing thoughts?
I think just want to see the last two games, then. But I think Toronto is going to surprise a lot of people this year.
Once everything clicks for them, I think it
Mhm.
will. I think there's a lot of the offense that was holding this team back last year. And I think again, it's hard to tell. Without Jakob, who's going to be a huge part, without Precious, who's going to be a huge I mean, you're missing so many guys and you're
And
playing this
last week,
NBL team. There's nothing to be gained
I
from this.
know, and I just want to, today I knew they're going to blow out the thing. I just wanted to see the ball movement, right? Because it was more like a practice session for them, right? And
Totally.
but everybody says, oh, Fred VanVleet is this great, and Dennis Schroeder is a big drop off from VanVleet. I don't think so. I think he's a better fit for Toronto. And if you watch, have you watched Houston Rocket? Did you watch the last two games? They,
I
they,
watched the
they,
first one.
they're kind of better without Fred because Fred slows down the young players, right? It's not like you have a team of veterans. When the young guys are there, they're running. When Fred was playing, it's like it slows down them big time.
I think Fred VanVleet does a lot of other stuff like team defense stuff,
I, I,
spacing,
I think
shooting,
that
passing
defense
the
is I
basketball,
think
like
that
moving.
that defense is overrated right now because Van Vliet look washed. I call him the Russell Wilson of basketball right now. Them.
I mean, like no argument here. He is definitely not worth anywhere close to the money he signed. But I think right now,
You heard
if
when
you
he
want me to
came
give
and
you a
sleep.
fair value on Fred VanVleet right now, I think he's worth about 22 million. 22 to 24 million. The fact that they paid him 43 is insane. 22 to 24. You want fair value on Dennis Schroeder? I think he's worth 10.
You
So there
heard
is a
when
gap.
you heard that one of the interviews when one of his former his trainer slept and said that he had hip surgery. I think 2 years, one of
We
the
knew
summers
this.
ago.
We knew
Huh?
this, didn't we?
Yeah,
I
no,
thought we
but
knew this.
at
I knew
Raptors,
this.
nobody said he had. I think he said he was just going to rehab it, but he actually had hip surgery. So
Well, I mean, that explains a hell of a lot about his point of attack defense going down the hill. But also,
exactly.
credit to Fred VanVleet for, battling through it and getting his bag, I mean, like, and not at our expense, right? I mean, like, I don't know what part the fans played, but I got to tell you, when you sign a guy to $130 million, you need to get blessing from your ownership. To some extent, you always do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I do wonder if Rodgers and Bell felt how little this fan base valued this guy, how much the fan sentiment had turned against him, and how much that puts pressure on ownership and management that you can't bring a guy back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this was my suspicion all last year when I led sort of let's say a campaign against the guy to expose, what he was doing by making all the low light videos. My perspective on this was if enough fans wake up to what he's doing, he'll change.
But
Now,
they were
fans
trying to
woke
bring
up
him
and he
back,
didn't
right?
change. He doubled down, huh?
They were trying to bring him back, right? For
They
the right.
did, but here's the thing: you can't justify a $43 million contract for a player that everyone hates. You just can't.
Mm-hmm.
You could justify 22 million. We retained the asset. I don't think anyone would have complained at 22, 24, 25 million. I don't think anyone would have complained about it because the Raptors just would have been able to say, we retained the asset. We can move it later. But at $43 million, when it starts costing you your mid-level exception, starts costing your biannual exception, and it's going to cost you not being able to bring back Gary or bringing up or lowering your offer to Jakob or making you a tax team for Fred freaking VanVleet. But I'll tell you one person who doesn't realize that Fred VanVleet is washed, and it's the Toronto Raptors. Have you seen the ticket prices for the February 19th game, February 9th game for the Rockets? It's
No.
on par with the Celtics, man.
Wow.
Yo, I mean, they are very much. I mean, they are expecting 19, 20,000 people to show up in 23 jerseys to give this guy salutes. I don't think you're gonna get it. I really don't.
I think you get it. He has some he has some fans out there. Yeah.
$680 for 2 tickets, yo. I'm good. I could buy season tickets to watch the Charlotte Hornets for that. Couldn't I?
Yeah. So what do you
But
think the Raps are gonna do with the three players that are free agent? The three key players.
I'm going
Who
to
is
talk about that. I'm going to talk about that towards the end of the show. I'm going to get to the final caller here, and then I'll
okay?
talk about that as
I'll
well.
sit back and listen.
All right,
Thanks.
man. Effie.
Have
Thanks
a
for
good
calling in. I
one.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Cheers. All right. Ian, what's up, man? Is it Ian? Ian? Ian.
It's Ian.
Ian,
Hello, can
correct.
you-
You've called before, right?
No, I think that's probably a different Ian.
Okay. I just want to get this super chat out of the way first. This question is, what would you think if we ran a lineup of Schroeder, Gary, OG, Pascal, Poeltl with a bench of Dowtin, McDaniels, Scotty, Boucher, Precious? Can the bench win? I'm not entirely sure if that means like 1 versus 1. Or if you're suggesting that Scotty should come off the bench. If you're suggesting Scotty should come off the bench, I'm pretty much against it, even though I understand where you're coming at this. If you're saying one lineup against the next, I think those lineups are pretty evenly matched, to be honest with you. I know that might seem like a hot take, and maybe the edge would go towards the Schroeder Pascal lineup, but it wouldn't be by much. There's a lot of parity between these lineups, and yeah, I've really liked what I've seen from Jalen McDaniels in terms of being a cutter, defender, etc. Anyways, moving on. Ian, what did you think of the game today? And yeah.
Well, yeah, first time caller. Well, for me, I'm gonna be make it as quick as possible. McCurr Maker, I see what they see. I've been watching his highlights, watching all of the YouTube stuff with them. I can see what they're talking about. Like, he can bring the ball up as a center, as a point center, but he still has a long way to go. I've seen him against that kid from the Thunder who just came back from injury. I've seen him against some of the other
Chet Holmgren?
Yeah, Chet Holmgren. I see him play up against him. It was okay, but I do see the potential. So I
Is
don't
there
mind.
any way you can get a clearer audio connection? Are you speaking away from your phone? Are you calling in from your phone?
No, I'm using my Hold on 1 sec. I can just jump off my headset.
Yeah, just get off your headset because it sounds kind of muffled.
Okay, hold on 1 sec. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Can you hear me now?
Hey, yeah,
Hello?
I don't know if that's worse or better, but just try speaking and let's see if it's a little bit better.
Testing. Can you hear me?
I can, but it's still really bad. Okay, just say what you got to say quickly. There's a lot of static, a lot of breakup, and people usually get.
That. Hold on 1 second. Let me just switch rooms then. Okay. So as I was saying, McCurr Maker, he's okay. I see the potential in him. As for
You sound like Darth Vader, bro.
Sorry.
You sound like Darth Vader right now. It sounds really bad.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jeff Downing, I like the way he moves off the ball and everything. Like the play away from the play, what he does, the pass that assists the pass. He's really good at it. So I like him more on the floor than I would Malachi Flynn or even the new kid who looks like I call him the Mighty Mouse Jr. But other than that, yeah, I think Liberty Freeman and Jeff should stay on the team like you. So I kind of agree with all your takes. So that's pretty much it I wanted to bring up. But yeah. All right, so I'll get off.
Thanks.
Static.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I hate when that happens because I could sense that it's probably not your fault and it's very frustrating, but it's also really frustrating for the listeners. But thanks a lot, man. Thanks for calling in. All right. So let's see if we can build up some steam for the free Jeff Dowtin, train, because honestly, I felt I was very split last year, trying to get Nick Nurse fired, trying to get the fan base to wake up to Fred VanVleet's bullshit. Okay, trying to get the team to tank. That didn't work out either. Y'all seen Victor Wembanyama play? You understand why I wanted to tank so badly at the midseason mark? Holy shit. I don't think I've seen anything like this in my lifetime. I watched basketball my whole life. It's wild, man. I hope he stays healthy. But this is the type of person that, you want to, I'm going to give you some free advice. Get League Pass. The league obviously wants to get a League Pass. Just get a League Pass trial and watch the first week of this guy's career, man. It's special. It's special to watch him defensively, offensively. I mean, he could be 8, 10, 12, 14 feet away from the play, and a guy's going up for a layup, and he somehow still gets it. It's absolutely insane to me. Watching him versus Chet, just like coming up down the court, like you're watching 7'4" versus 7'1", bringing the ball up the court. Like, it was one thing when Dirk did it, right? It's another thing when KD does it. I get it. But to watch two guys this young, this skilled, doing it at this level, at this, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Cherish it, watch it, because I tell you, there's a lot of really tall players in the league. They haven't lasted very long. I personally wish I had watched a little bit more of Yao Ming's prime than I got a chance to. There's a lot of guys like that, in league history where it's like too tall. But I've been very attuned and very, familiar with Victor Wembanyama's entire process and how he got ready for the NBA. His process is completely different from any player I've ever seen come into the league. His trainers, he's basically a national asset at this point for French basketball, and French basketball is on the rise. Speaking of players that you should have tanked for, has anyone seen Bilal Coulibaly so far? Holy shit. I mean, honestly, I could peg, like, I wish I could take a bet that within 5 years, both these guys are going to be on an all-NBA team, like an all-NBA defensive team, because they are so special. The both of them, like, honestly, it doesn't matter who you're playing up against. They're just suffocating. They're both so incredible. That's sort of my thoughts on rookies around the league. Obviously, like it's hard to tell with preseason. We'll see as the season goes on. Some guys struggle, some guys are doing well, but I again, as I mentioned, I know that Grady Dick is not coming out shooting 6 threes, and I'm sure people want him to, but I have been overall pretty encouraged by him. Now, let's talk about what I alluded to earlier, and then we'll talk about something bigger and broader to close this out. We're at 1 hour and 11 minutes. Let's try to see if we can keep this to 1 hour and 20, or maybe 1 hour and 25, maximum 1 hour 25. All right. So I caught a Raptors Republic podcast with Samson Folk and Sirat Sohi over from theringer.com. And it was very interesting. Samson's been going around the league, and I guess through Summer League and through Raptors Republic getting bigger and, having more access, they were getting access to all these media types from all over the league. And Sirat, so he was, of course, with the Raptors a few years ago before she went over, I think 3-4 years ago before she went over to theringer.com. So the connections are there. And they were talking about what has happened to our dear Raptors. And I thought they touched on a few points that made some sense, specifically, that there is a very big difference between how the Raptors operated prior to 2019, 2020, and now. Like, there's a pretty big difference. And how much of that was brain drain? How much of that was Kyle Lowry? How much of that is ownership? How much of that is Masai Ujiri, moving up in the world and maybe, focusing a little less, being less hands-on on basketball, Bobby Webster, Dan Tolzman taking on more of a role. How much of that is just dumb shit, luck, the law of averages, right? Like, I mean, look, if you're a Warriors fan, you wonder how the same team that found Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green couldn't develop, right, James Wiseman. We all have peaks and valleys. We all have averages. Nobody bats 100. I get it, right? The same general manager who found Shea, who found Chet, who found Jalen Williams, 15 years ago, 14, 13 years ago, found James Harden, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, back-to-back drafts, Sam Presti. But in the middle, there were some depressing ass years in the middle, right? So I think at some point you do have to stick it out with people that you know to be competent, hardworking people, but there will be droughts like this. Mama said there will be days like this. And so I do wonder how much of that I believe in. And the broader point of what they were saying was it doesn't really make a lot of sense what the Raptors are doing, because they're going into this season with the same complications that they went into last season with, which is mainly that you have a whole bunch of guys who are not assured contracts, who are fighting for contracts, specifically Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Gary Trent Jr., and how that could potentially be a distraction for the team going forward, how it's not really making a hell of a lot of sense to like what are you gaining by kind of leaving this Pascal Siakam thing dangling? I mean, if you're not going to trade him, which I mean, to this point you haven't, maybe you're holding out, but we're not hearing that the Atlanta Hawks are interested anymore. The Dame Lillard thing has already dropped. So if that was the holdup, what about Miami? What would you want back? Do you want Tyler Hero back? I mean, he would be a massive improvement over somebody on this team. I'll guarantee you that. Is this a wait and see situation? Well, there's two sides. There's two sides to that equation. The other team is also, maybe a little less likely to make a trade. And maybe the team that you think is going to be, struggling, right? Like it's sort of a weird hedge because if you thrive, you have to keep him. But now he has more leverage. If you struggle, you have less leverage in both a trade and a negotiation, right? I mean, unless, of course, you're playing hard. And I don't even get what the hardball is about. He's getting a max contract. He's not signing for less than a max contract. It's not like one of those situations with like Fred VanVleet where it could be 30 million or it could be 22 million, depending on how he plays. He's getting a max contract no matter what. He's the best free agent. So I don't get it. With OG, I totally do get it. You can't offer him enough. I get it. He's going to be a free agent. Gary, also, I don't understand completely what they're doing on that side. Maybe they want to see how he buys into the six-man role. We've already seen it. I mean, if after 2 years you're still unconvinced, I don't get this. So yes, I think it is fair to be a little confused about what the Raptors are doing. And I think that both Sampson and Sirat made some really good points about the fact that, hey, this ironclad organization that had this completely visionary approach that was 10 years ahead of the league and just spotted gems left, right, and center in the two-way contract and G League keep, they haven't done that for a while. And we need to start paying attention to the fact that they haven't been doing that for a while. Now, what have they still been doing that kind of brought them through, and why should you continue to trust them? Well, I think they've remained really good people. I know it sounds really corny, but I'm going to say it. I think they've remained really ethical. If you listen to their reasoning of why they didn't trade Fred VanVleet, I think it's pretty ironclad. And I think that, look, I want to be clear. If you follow Drew Holiday's wife and you listen to what she said about how the Bucks traded Drew Holiday, if you get a notion of that's what she said publicly, can you imagine what Drew Holiday is saying about the Bucks organization, their ownership, their coaching staff, etc., privately? If this is what they're willing to release publicly, can you imagine what they might release privately? I think if you're the Raptors, you have, under Masai Ujiri, consistently developed this reputation of a team that develops players that are willing to develop. And somehow, despite the failures of Patrick McCaw and Stanley Johnson and Rondé Hollis Jefferson and Aaron Baines and all these guys who kind of come in and done jack shit, you have retained that because of Pascal and OG and Scotty and all the players, Norman Powell, the guys you've developed. Number two, this is not a team that burns bridges on its way out. Regardless of what DeMar said about, the Raptors and Masai Ujiri, they never slung mud back on him. Never. They stayed classy. This is very rare. And trust me, I lived through the years where the Raptors would sling a lot of mud back at players. The Vince Carter era, the Chris Bosh era. Brian Colangelo straight up came out and said he's not a franchise guy. Rob Babcock came out and said, this is not a player you can build around. He's leaking plays. He's this, he's that. Not the reputation you want across the league. The league is getting more talented. It's getting more global, but it's also getting increasingly more connected, just like we all are. And so people talk. There are like 6 or 7 power brokers and agents in this league. If Rich Paul is not fucking with you, there's like 30, 40 players that are just off the table for you when it comes to free agency. So this sort of like human element of hand washes hand stuff, I think the Raptors are really good at that. And I think they've continued to take care of their players. Fred VanVleet, regardless of, what happened to him on his way out, nothing that you can put on the Raptors. Jakob Poeltl, they paid the shit out of him. Gary Trent Jr., they took care of him when his last extension came up. OG Anunoby, they're going to take care of him. So that particularly, this reputation of taking care of your guys, I think that's what's probably thrown a lot of people off about this Pascal Siakam thing, because it's like, man, you taking care of everybody. You don't leak shit about anybody. You don't talk shit about guys on their way out. You don't trade guys when they're, expiring contracts, even though there's a chance they're going to leave for nothing. But here you have this two-time All-NBA guy, two-time All-Star, a guy who's, so far really buying into your system. And granted, he's not a superstar, but he's come up through your system. He is absolutely every single thing that you say you want in a player. And bonus, he's also a great ambassador for international players. You're an international team. He's a great ambassador for, everything you're doing with Africa basketball. So what the fuck is the holdup? Unless, of course, there's a part of the equation that we don't know. Maybe he doesn't want this max contract. Maybe he wants a super max. Maybe Jake Fisher and everybody reporting on this is wrong. We will not know until this is concluded. But I will say that it is fair to question this team. It is fair to question them on Fred VanVleet. It is fair to question them on choosing not to tank last year. It is fair to question them on why they decided to pair a team with so many non-shooters with a center who literally cannot shoot. All of these things are fair. And yet it is also fair to have faith in them. Two things can be true. It is fair to have faith in the type of people who are running this team. It is fair to trust that they have not forgotten how to draft, because I believe that they're still drafting well. It is still fair to assume that they haven't forgotten how to build culture, because they built this thing once. And it seems to me, at least from hearing everything that Dr. Ralkovich is saying, that they're trying to rebuild something that has been lost. So that is my take on that. Finally, I want to talk about something a little bit bigger than basketball and a little bit bigger, generally in life. The last 3 days I have spent panicked, so panicked. Some of y'all have been watching this channel and, you've been watching these lives. You know that I shot a film a couple of days ago. I want to talk about last week, right? Whew. Let me take a slight detour to thank you for this super chat. Ever thought how much Casey had to do with the Raptors culture prior to 2019? We started a countdown to league standard when he left. 2019 threaded a needle. Thankfully, we reset this summer. Cause and effect is so hard to map with NBA teams. I think it's, as much as I had issues with Dwayne Casey as a tactician and as a defensive coach and for his late adjustments, I don't think that you could ever doubt the type of person he was on and off the court. I don't think you could ever doubt that the players trusted him, that the players liked him, that the players respected him. But I think unanimously everyone knew it was time for him to go. And, for everything that's, he hasn't built it in Detroit. I'm not saying that as a slight against him. I'm just saying he's not a miracle worker. I think it's hard to assign all the credit or all the blame to any one person, right? It's just like last year. Do I have a renewed sense of empathy for Fred VanVleet after talking to some people close to him and just trying to understand his side of it? Yeah, I do. I do have a renewed sense of empathy and understanding for what he went through last year as well. Do I still hate the way he played? Absolutely. I still hate the way he played. I still hate the way he talked about, his team in the media. I still, feel he has a lot of blood on his hands for how the last season played out. But I understand a little bit better, and I've tried to understand his side a little bit better about what he was trying to, accomplish and what he went through and how hard he's worked to get to where he is. I get it all. So, when it comes to the Raptors' success, I mean, it's hard for me to detach it from Kyle and DeMar. I know DeMar was traded out for Kawhi Leonard, and you were able to sustain some of that, but talk to the players who were here 2016, 2017, 2018, 2014, and talk to them. And who do they talk about? They talk about DeMar. A lot of them talk about DeMar. DeMar was my vet. DeMar was the nicest guy. DeMar kept the locker room light. You need yin and yang, man. And DeMar and Kyle were yin and yang. Like, you had one who was like a super hard ass, like stumpy, didn't talk, too much. And DeMar just kept you light after losses. He joked, he cared. They both worked their tails off. They both worked hard. They both were great leaders. I really do think that DeMar kind of gets shit on a lot because he got traded for the guy who eventually won Finals MVP and a championship and whatever. But don't take away from the culture that he helped build here, man, because he was a really fucking big part of it. Really big part of it. People love DeMar DeRozan across the NBA. I can't think of a player who doesn't respect the hell out of him. And it's for good reason. You had that person in your locker room every single day talking to young players. And he's the one teaching them what it means to be pro. You've been missing that, in my opinion, because Siakam ain't it. Like, Siakam is a super hard worker, but he's also kind of like a disciple of DeMar, isn't he? talks about DeMar all the time, talks about DeMar taught him to do this, DeMar taught him to do that. Like this is clear to me. OG's talked about DeMar. Norman Powell's talked about DeMar so much, like all of these guys. So DeMar and Kyle to me is very hard. Jama is really hard to not think about a lot when it comes to, culture and everything that people talk about him with. And also Patrick Mutombo. There's so many people in this organization from top to bottom, who are super classy, super good people. And trust me, I think what I want to say next will kind of demonstrate a miniature version of what I'm talking about here, but one person can make a very big difference. And you just never know when you're removing the right person or the wrong person until you've removed them, and then you see what the result will be. Brad Morse, another super chat. Thank you so much again. Super chats are really generous and really helping. Dwayne as a coach doesn't win you a championship, but you don't get Kyle and DeMar without Casey. Don't you? Kyle was here before Casey, wasn't he? They traded for Kyle as a contingency plan. Who was DeMar's first coach? Wasn't it Triano? Didn't they both play for Triano? Or do you mean like they wouldn't develop without Casey? That's fair too, because, Kyle had a bit of a reputation of not trusting people, and then boom, he trusted Dwayne Casey. But let us not forget, Kyle was this close to becoming a New York Knick, and I don't want that chapter of Raptors history to be rewritten. We the North was a complete fluke. It was a mistake, that entire thing. And in a weird way, I think it happens. It really does. It happens all the time in life where sometimes you're good, sometimes you're lucky. And I'm not suggesting that Masai Ujiri was lucky with We the North, but I assure you, when they traded Rudy Gay, their goal and expectation was not to win the playoffs or get to the playoffs. Their expectation was, we're trading Rudy Gay, we're trading Kyle, and then boom, DeMar had asked for a trade as well. They were going to trade all three of them. And so sometimes, as I said, people get a lot of credit for the shit they do, but they don't get a lot of credit for the shit they don't do. And in this case, you're getting credit for something you didn't do when you actually don't even deserve credit for it. It's actually James Dolan who deserves credit for not doing it on the Knicks side, because he was still so, you know what? In a very weird way, you can thank Andrea Bargnani for the We the North era. There, clip that. So to those who don't remember, Andrea Bargnani got shipped out prior to Brian Colangelo coming over. I believe Wayne Embry, or it was Wayne Embry, who was interim GM for a very short period of time between Rob Babcock and Brian Colangelo. Wait, no. Sorry, between Brian Colangelo and Masai Ujiri. There was an interim GM in the middle there. I think it was Wayne Embry, if I'm not mistaken, and whoever it was shipped out Andrea Bargnani, or it was Masai Ujiri who came in and shipped out Andrea Bargnani. I'm fuzzing on the details. Either way, somebody shipped out Andrea Bargnani to the New York Knicks, and they got back Steve Novak, I think the contract of Marcus Camby, who never played, and they got like some first-round picks. One of those picks ended up becoming Jakob Poeltl, and obviously the Knicks were very upset that they got fleeced in that deal. Their fan base was absolutely irate. They hated Bargnani, especially, after, he had the ball situation where the ball hit his face and stuff. And so when they had to watch their team surrender a 9th overall pick, which is ironic because that pick was Jakob Poeltl, and if the Raptor season goes disastrously, imagine how the world comes full center, because we, in exchange for Jakob Poeltl, gave up a pick that could very well be the 9th pick, which is hilarious because that's the pick that he was used. Anyways, sorry, I'm racing. But my point is, you get what I'm saying. That was not intentional at all. That was purely accident. And in a really weird way, 10 years of We the North, you've been too good to tear it down. Maybe Fred leaving allows Masai Ujiri to finally build this team the way he actually wants to build the team, instead of just sustaining something that he never wanted to start to begin with. Because he wanted to tear down in Denver, he wanted to tear down in Toronto. A lot of people don't know this. He was looking to shop DeMar DeRozan for the pick that ended up becoming Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So you don't think that was a teardown? I mean, this is a guy who really wanted to tear down, in 2018. Like, he's not a guy who just wants to sit in the middle like a lot of people think. This is a person who genuinely enjoys building from the ground up. And, if he has an opportunity here to build with Scotty, Grady, OG, etc., Maybe that is the reason why Pascal Siakam has not been extended. Anyway, to move on to do we have another super chat here? Sorry. No, we do not. We have Rank Scrub. Can Charlotte be a potential Pascal trade partner? What would you want back? I don't want anything on that roster. I mean, unless you're including Mark Williams, but like what else do they have? I mean, make me a Charlotte deal for Charlotte for Pascal that makes sense. Like I'm not really a big Brandon Miller guy. I'm not really sure what they have that interests me. I would still think the Atlanta Hawks are my favorite Pascal trade partner. No, I don't think so. I mean, look, I could be wrong. But I don't see the tantalizing potential in him that a lot of people do. I haven't seen it the whole way through, and I haven't seen it yet. Anyways, to close off, we're at 1 hour and 30 minutes, and I'm already 5 minutes over where I wanted to be. But I did want to answer these super chats as best I could. Look, I had a very tough last 4 days, and it's not going to be tough for most people. It sounds like first world problems and complaining, but I just wanted to share this because I think maybe this can help somebody. I don't know. Maybe it can. I like to pepper these little life stories at the end of these lives. Anyway, so those of you who know, I was on a film shoot, and I worked my ass off on this film shoot. I really did. I worked so hard, and it was 3 days. I was supposed to work, I think, 12 hours, 6 hours, and 12 hours. And that's pretty much, and to those of you who are in the independent film industry and people who do a lot of non-union stuff, you know that 12 hours could turn into 16 hours like that, no problem. And I felt very overworked. Day 1 went 16 or 17 hours. Day 2 went like close to 10, 11 hours. And day 3 was like 14, 15 hours. I mean, it was crazy. And after I handed the producer off their footage, I was a little bit scared because I suddenly stopped getting messages. Like they were really communicative, and I was the DOP. So just to give people context, I had the camera, I did some of the shots, like I did all of the photography for it, like the videography, like what you see is my camera, my lights, my shit, right? And I just got worried because I mean, like, you've handed them the footage, you've lost all your leverage, you didn't sign a contract with the guy because he seemed really nice, super, and I'm just like, these guys stiff me. So I started spiraling. I was like, man, I started messaging them like every day. I'm like, hey, just a heads up, sent the invoice, haven't heard back from you. And I think it's partially because I just got a really bad vibe and some stuff just had happened on set that I'm not comfortable discussing publicly that just kind of gave me a feeling that maybe this would not be a smooth sailing, in terms of getting a payment. And I've heard a lot of people get fucked over for payments. And it happened to me once earlier this year where a guy stiffed me for a lot of money. And, then it was funny because I talked about it on this live and somebody, started initiating like some sort of crazy super chat. And we ended up like $900 or something crazy like that. That was crazy. But I'm happy to say I did not get stiffed. So no one need to send a super chat. So I got paid today. But I spent like the last 3 days spiraling and freaking out that I wouldn't. And it's not a ton of money, but it's like it's almost a couple $1,000s. So it's something. And I started freaking out and I started thinking back like, man, I worked so fucking hard on this set. I was the one person who didn't stop the whole time. I didn't take lunch breaks, yo. Can you imagine working 16 hours without a break? Because that's what I did. I didn't take a single break for 16 hours. Not like I took 4 minutes and then like maybe like 1 minute smoke break and then like 1 minute like to eat some Smarties, and that was it. And I didn't like I worked. I'm not trying to be rude to anybody else because I think like a lot of people worked really hard, but I think I worked 2 times harder than anybody else on set. And I was thinking to myself like, damn it, if I don't get paid, like that was it. It wasn't even the money, it was just the idea of it. Like I started to think, and started to spiral, and I'm like, I'm having these negative thoughts, and I'm just like, why? Like what if these people screw me over? What's my recourse? I don't have a contract. Am I going to take them to small claims court? It's not even worth it. I'm going to waste so much time. What am I going to do? And so I started messaging some crew that worked, and people were like, yo, I got paid. I'm like, oh my God, it's just me. And you start getting like real freaked out and conspiratorial. Anyways, I just want to say, I had to ease my mind. I listened to a podcast with Gabor Mate, Dr. Gabor Mate, who I've seen around Toronto, and is really, really cool dude, and really bright and insightful. I've seen him at Seeker's Books. Like it's really wild how many intellectuals and thinkers come from the GTA, but it's pretty cool. And I listened to him on Impact Theory, and he was talking about anxiety. Like, where does the stress response come from in children? How do we treat our children? How do we raise our children? Do we nurture and love our children correctly? And if a child is raised with anxiety, the way I was, right? When they are raised, not only, so it's two sides. Number one, I wanted to ask, why did I have this heightened level of anxiety when maybe other people would be calmer? They would be rational. Why did I feel so anxious? Number two, why did I work 16 hours? Why did I push myself? My reason for working 16 hours, I wanted to get the crew home earlier. I felt empathy for them. I was like, man, these people are working so hard. I want to make sure that they're home. So I'm going to keep working super hard to make sure they get out on time. I would go up to the crew and I'd be like, I promise to get you out of here by 6. And I'm just like, bro, like all those people ate. Why didn't you eat? And those people took a break. Why didn't you take a break? The story I told myself on set was, I don't need a break. I'm tough. I work hard. I called it hard working. But when I was listening to Gabor Mate, it got me thinking, am I hardworking or do I lack self-esteem? Am I opinionated or do I lack self-esteem? I don't mean self-esteem as in like the outward self-confidence that a lot of people, the bravado of puff your chest. I'm talking real self-esteem, like what do you deserve? Do you deserve a break? Do you deserve nice things? Do you deserve nice clothes? Do you deserve a break? Like, do you deserve a vacation? Like these things, like when you, like the way I was raised as a kid, I was often told to shut up. Like if I complained about the food, I was always told to shut up as somebody else had less food. If I complained about my clothes, the question was, if I complain if my shoes don't fit or my pants don't fit, nobody ever said, let me address what you're talking about and why you're being teased at school because your pants don't fit. They always said, somebody else doesn't have shoes. Somebody else doesn't have pants. Somebody else is starving. So I learned at a very young age that my needs don't actually matter. It's a very disastrous thing to learn as a child, but that's how I felt. Like I felt like my needs didn't matter. But I also learned that everyone else's needs really matter. Like everybody else, like every dog, every child, every stranger, every family, their needs matter a lot. Because if they have a problem with me, I'm in trouble. So I'm not hardworking. That's what I realized. The anxiety thing is your anxiety, just my opinion, I'm not a doctor, but I think that your anxiety is when you can't do the healthy thing. Your anger is also the same thing. What Gabor Mate said in that podcast on impact theory was adults don't have temper tantrums. You know who has temper tantrums? Children in adult bodies. That's not a slight on anybody who has had temper tantrums. I've had temper tantrums on this show, but I just wanted to share that with you guys because I found it kind of fascinating to realize that when you're young and you're told don't be angry or I'm not going to talk to you, or don't be petty, or don't when you get like deprived of your parents' attachment based on like your behavior, you learn to suppress the behavior. Imagine if you're a boy, if you're a young man and you fall down on the basketball court and your father's watching you and you cry, and he comes up to you and you're crying because your knee is bleeding. And instead of saying, are you okay? He says, wipe your tears, boys don't cry. What do? Like, and especially if he's embarrassed by you. Oh my God. He's embarrassed by you and he doesn't talk to you on the way home because he's so embarrassed that you cried in front of everybody. Well, now you're never crying again. You're never going to cry. I'll tell you something that Gabor Mate talked about a lot. He said, emotional repression literally leads to sickness and illness. This hit me hard. I am 35, going on 36. My father passed away at 44. I am not taking these days for granted in my life anymore. I'm sure my father, had I told him at 35 years old, when I was, 2 years old or whatever, that you have 8 years, 9 years to live, he probably wouldn't have believed me. I don't think most people would. I closed this on a story about Lou Gehrig. Now, most people have heard of Lou Gehrig as the guy who had ALS. They called it Lou Gehrig disease. And Gabor Mate shared a story about Lou Gehrig where he said he would play sick. He would play hurt. But if ever he had a teammate who was sick, he would be the first person who'd be like, this person needs some time off. And I was like, shit, that's me. That's exactly me. So you can put my health at risk, but don't you dare put my crew's health at risk. Like, you can ask me to come, I'll work sick, but don't you ask one of my friends to work sick. You know what I mean? And he said that that's the ALS personality type. People who repress their own needs, their own emotions, and care entirely too much about others. So I'm going to share with you something that someone who's become like a mother figure to me shared with me. Said, take some of that love that you've given to everybody else and for one day give it to yourself. And I think that's really solid advice. Anyways, I wanted to share that with y'all. I hope that it was not too boring. I know it's a bit of a deviation from basketball, but it only took 10 minutes. If that resonates with you, make sure to give this video a like. I hope that it helps somebody out there. I'm trying to make this channel about I'm not trying to make it more than basketball. I'm just trying to keep it whole. You know what I mean? Sometimes basketball extends on a lot of stuff. And I think that generally speaking, if we have a more conscious, more aware, more empathetic, more knowledgeable community in general, we're making a better world, man. Someone said to me the other day, it's really cool how you talk about so much of other stuff on Pantera basketball. And I was like, yo, one day I would like to know that my kids go to school and there's somebody who's picking on them and there's somebody who helps my kid. And they're just like, yeah, because my dad, heard this thing on Pantera basketball or watched one of this guy's movies. I'm just trying to create the world that I want to live in. You know what I mean? And I hope that more people can do the same. I realize that most people are not blessed to have a really cool platform like this, but you can create one in your community and just try to, I'm not saying spread God's word or anything like that. It's not a religious message. It's just try to create a better world, one neighbor at a time. Right? Yeah. Anyways, thank you so much. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it, man. All right, guys. Take care. Sub up, like the video, and I'll see you guys in a couple days. Raptors heading to Chicago next. Revenge on their mind. DeMar DeRozan, hopefully he plays. Zach LaVine. Should be fun. Should be a fun game. It'd be nice to watch the Raptors play against some NBA competition. And it'll also be nice to see, hopefully, a healthier roster. Hopefully, Jakob Poeltl is back. Happy birthday, Jakob Poeltl. Also, I did not say it in the last live, but rest in peace to the Raptors' first head coach, Brendan Malone. It was a little bit before my time. Condolences to his family. I wasn't in Toronto at the time, so I don't have a lot of memories or anything to say from an authentic place. But I believe he was 81 years old. Yeah. All right, guys. Take care. Have a good one. Peace.